So, there is always a spiritual dimension to any mental disorder, and the narcissistic personality disorder is no different. Hello, beautiful people. It is Oshun Kimmy, your sage, your guru, your mystic, and your spiritual informant. And today we are looking at narcissism from a spiritual perspective to understand that narcissism is in fact a sign that a person is under the influence and the subjugation of dark, negative, and demoniac entities. So this video will be a part of a larger series of conversations of looking at various mental disorders from a spiritual perspective. So please be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell so that you can keep up with the future conversations that we're going to have as we think about depression, anxiety, and even schizophrenia from a spiritual perspective. So before I get too deep into this conversation, I understand that it can indeed be controversial to say that psychological disorders are signs of negative spiritual energies and influences, but this is only because we live in a society that regularly ignores the spiritual dimensions of our existence. And so the spiritual is the root and basis of all things, the psyche, the emotions, the body. And so any imbalance or disharmony or disorder that we have in any of these areas is going to have a spiritual element and component. And that is what we are talking about today. So now, without further ado, let's hop into this spiritual tea about narcissism. And so this information came directly from my higher order guides. And so this is something that I would not have personally known myself. I got all of this information through channeling. So narcissism occurs when a person's soul is at a 0 point, meaning that it is existing in a negative state. 0 and negative refers to the fact that it has no positive electrical charge the way that a healthy soul would and should. So rather than the energy of the soul charging outward and emanating outward, it actually does something else, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. So when a soul has a positive charge, it is going to emit and attract certain frequencies of a higher life-giving nature. However, when the soul is at a 0 point, that means that it does not have the potential nor the ability to emit positive frequencies, but instead can only subsume or eat energies, meaning that the soul at a negative or 0 point has become a void. It has become a black hole where rather than energy, positive energy emanating out, energy is going to be sucked into it. So let's get a little bit deeper, right? So a person suffering from narcissism is essentially a walking energy vortex. And this means two things. Number one, as an energy vortex with a negative soul charge, the narcissist has become a prime vibrational match for energy harvesting entities and other entities of a lower or darker nature, meaning that they will naturally attract entities of a soul-sucking nature, and they will walk with and act in similar ways as these entities. The energy that we carry and possess, especially at a soul level, is going to determine our psyche and our personality traits. So if we are occupied, our soul is occupied by negative soul-sucking entities, we are going to act in ways that reflect this negative occupation. So secondly, this thing about being an energy vortex means that as a result of the first point, where a person's soul has become a siphoning source or an energy harvesting source, anything or anyone that remains in contact with that person's energy field for too long is at risk of being spiritually subsumed by that person and by the entities that influence and walk with them. So this is why people who stay around narcissists for extended periods of time feel drained, their energy levels are reduced, the best parts of them are diminished, so their sense of confidence, their divinity, their life force will all take a hit because their energy is essentially being siphoned into a negative energy portal powered by energy harvesting entities, right? So, from a spiritual perspective, a narcissist is someone who is severely under the influence of negative and malevolent entities. So much to the point where that person is going to become an agent of those entities and will therefore act in ways that serve and honor those entities. So, just to put it plainly, narcissists are deeply in covenants with demonic forces. And so they act on behalf of those forces, consciously and or unconsciously. So people often say that narcissists know exactly what they are doing when they abuse people, when they lie to people, when they betray people, and so on. And I agree to an extent that this is true. They may consciously choose to do these things and may even get a kick out of doing harmful things to others, but many of them are not fully aware of just how much they are puppets to these malevolent forces. They think that harming others is some powerful choice that they are making on their own volition, when in reality, they are some of the most powerless people due to their own inability to do their own healing work and enlighten themselves enough to break free from the control of malevolent entities and to realign their souls back to a positive frequency and charge. So they may get a kick out of feeling like they have a lot of power over others, but they do not have power and willpower in the ways that matter most, which is when it comes to our own sovereignty and soul power and volition. So another point about having a soul that is at a 0 point or that has a negative charge is that it means that the person possesses very little personal willpower. They follow every little whim, temptation, and negative thought impression that comes to their mind. They don't actually have the strength or power to say no to being negatively influenced. So they don't have the spiritual willpower to preserve the sanctity of their soul and their spirit. And this is why, in my opinion, they are so usually hell-bent on controlling other people, because they do not have real control over themselves. So in order to fulfill that need for control that many of us have, which is not a bad thing when we are using it to master ourselves. But in order for narcissists to feel like they have control or mastery, they try to exert that over other people. They need to feel that they have power, but since they do not have power over their own life and over their own mind and over their own negative behavioral patterns, they seek to make other people feel powerless by trying to control how other people feel about themselves. And so this is why there is such a common connection between narcissists and witches and warlocks who practice baneful magic like destiny swapping and energy harvesting, because their aura and their spirits are occupied and influenced by such dark entities and energies. So they are agents for these entities, right? And this is why they are so adept at summoning demons. The demons are already all around them. So it is therefore easy for them to summon them and send them out. The demons are not too far away to begin with, okay? So now let's continue to go deeper into the spiritual composition of the narcissist. Due to the fact that there are so many negative entities rooted in the aura of a narcissist, they usually have very little authentic self-concept. They don't have an idea of who they truly are in terms of their higher, truer, and deeper nature. And if they do know this or are able to sense this, they don't actually know how, nor do they have the power to achieve and manifest their higher soul nature here on earth, which is one of the most advanced, divine, and powerful things that we can do as human beings, to summon our higher energy and to walk with it on earth by leading and living a spiritually aligned life. So since narcissists have a wounded, broken, and blocked self-concept, they spend lots and lots of time doing glamour magic. And glamour magic does not always have to involve literal spell work. I am using glamour magic in a way of referring to any intentional effort to cast illusions and control other people's perception of them. That is glamour magic. So when narcissists intentionally do things for you to see them as powerful, for you to see them as someone to fear, or even as someone who is superior to you, then that is glamour magic, because none of those things are true, right? They're not powerful. They're not necessarily something to fear and they're not superior in any way. And so, narcissists' ability to perform glamour magic and wear mask after mask after mask is due to the fact that various trickster and shape shifting entities will take roots in their aura and influence their behavior. Certain entities love certain energies, and people who have their soul at a negative 0 points, they're going to attract these types of chaotic entities, right? So their ability to shapeshift is also why you could have met a narcissist and did not realize upfront or immediately that they were in fact narcissistic. But the masks always come off. And so this is why we pray for discernment on a daily basis, especially when it comes to people we are giving our money, our time, our energy, our trust, or our body to. Ashe? Ashe. So I am going to leave this conversation here for now. I hope that it was enlightening to you. Please feel free to let me know what you all are thinking in the comments. If you need a reading about any spiritual or mystical situation in your life, please feel free to book a one-on-one with me. And if you feel enlightened by the conversations that we have here on this channel, you will be highly invigorated by the conversations that we have over on the Patreon. There will be a link for readings, spiritual bath, and the Patreon in the pinned comments below. Ashe.